I was going to say good morning. It has just ticked over into afternoon. So once again, apologies for being 5 minutes late. Once again, the needs of various people to contact me about various things caused a little delay there. First of all, a mention of the background. Quite a few people have said that they thought that this was the Glenfinnan Viaduct. It's not the Glenfinnan Viaduct, it's actually the Leaderfoot Viaduct. The Glenfinnan Viaduct, of course, is very famous. It's on the train line to Mallaig, and is very famous for being featured in a certain film. Now I can give you a clue as to what film we're talking about. The viaduct on the way to Hogwarts. Why are we in Hogwarts? Well, of course, I know that a lot of you are big fans of Harry Potter, and I'm sure that a lot of you know that Brendan Dassey has read all the books. Is a big Harry Potter fan, and as a little quiz this morning, I said to my wife, throughout the Harry Potter series, there are 3 occasions of wrongful conviction. Can you name them? So here's a little challenge to everybody. I shall now tomorrow's Friday, next day Saturday. Pete Dassey's on again. Little challenge. See if you can recognise the 3 occasions of at least 3 occasions of wrongful conviction in Harry Potter. I'll give you a clue. We're talking about books 2 and 3. Okay. When it comes to wrongful conviction, let me just first of all change this background back to. Let's go back to Southern California. The dude, in fact, he's left me some of his nice whiskey here. So cheers to everybody. Happy New Year when it comes very shortly. Australia, you've got less than an hour to wait. So, when it comes to these wrongful convictions, Netflix, since Making a Murderer came out in particular, have done dozens of documentaries about similar cases. Adnan Syed, for example, and Ryan Ferguson, and the Innocence Files, and the confession tapes. And, there's a whole, Khalif Browder was a terrible, terrible example of just blatant the machinations of the legal system just going completely wrong. So sometimes it's easy to forget that, it's to think that it's, that America, Uncle Sam, has cornered that bit of the market, and of course they haven't. Unfortunately, wrongful conviction can be traced as far back as the Old Testament. Bring this back up to the top. In the book of Jeremiah, he's the second prophet in the Bible, and he was falsely accused and imprisoned. Babylon's king Nebuchadnezzar. For a lot of people, Nebuchadnezzar, of course, is the name of the ship in the Matrix. Appointed Zedekiah, Josiah's son, to succeed Coniah, Jehoiakim's son, as king of Judah. Neither Zedekiah, his attendants, nor the people of the land listened to the Lord's words spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. Nevertheless, King Zedekiah sent Jehucal, Shelemiah's son, and the priest Zephaniah, Messiah's son, to Jeremiah the prophet with this plea: "Please pray for us to the Lord our God." Now Jeremiah hadn't been imprisoned yet, so he was free to come and go among the people. Pharaoh's army had recently set out from Egypt when the Babylonians, who were attacking Jerusalem, learnt of the Egyptian advance. They withdrew from Jerusalem. Then the Lord's word came to Jeremiah the prophet. "The Lord, the God of Israel, proclaims, tell the king of Judah, who sent his emissaries to seek advice from me, Pharaoh's army that came to assist you is heading back to Egypt. The Babylonians will return and attack the city. They will capture it and burn it down." And of course, what Jeremiah said came absolutely true. The Lord proclaims, "Don't let yourself be deceived into thinking that the Babylonians will withdraw for good. They won't. Even if you were to crush the entire Babylonian army that's attacking you and only the wounded in the tents remain, they would rise up and burn this city down." Now, when the Babylonian army had withdrawn from Jerusalem due to Pharaoh's advance, Jeremiah set out for the land of Benjamin to secure his share of the family property. He got as far as the Benjamin gate in Jerusalem when the guard there, named Erijah, Shelemiah's son, and Hananiah's grandson, arrested the prophet Jeremiah, saying, "You are deserting to the Babylonians." "That's a lie," Jeremiah replied. "I'm not deserting to the Babylonians." But Erijah wouldn't listen to him. He arrested Jeremiah and brought him to the officials, who were furious with him. They beat him and threw him into the house of the scribe Jonathan, which had been turned into a prison. So Jeremiah was put in a cistern, which is like a dungeon, where he remained a long time. So, the idea that, false imprisonment, false, being wrongly accused, wrongfully convicted, it's nothing new, really isn't. However, let's have a look at this case, because this was one that the dude was very interested in. Very interesting. So I'm just checking my screen just to make sure that could everybody see that text that I'd put up, because my screen was completely blank. That doesn't help. It's on the wrong one for some reason. I wonder how that happened. Okay, so everything seems to be okay. Sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure. Here we go then. As a lot of you will know, as I say, the dude was very, very interested in the case of Devontae Sanford. Let's have a look. Here's an article from May the 8th, 2020. I've tried to get the most recent up-to-date article I can find, which I'll present next. That seems to be the most up-to-date. If it's changed, I don't know. I don't know of that. But here we go. Let's see what Ann Arbor has to say about this case. Here's Devontae Sanford. In this June 9, 2016 photo, Devontae Sanford stands with his mother and addresses the media during a news conference in Detroit, a day after being released from prison. Michigan State Police said blood on the shoe of Devontae Sanford, who was convicted but subsequently cleared of 4 murders, reveals DNA from one of the victims. The disclosure was made in a recent filing in Detroit federal court, where Devontae Sanford is suing Detroit police over the 2007 investigation. So, Ann Arbor, of course, that's not the name of the correspondent, that's, isn't it? That's suddenly occurred to me. Oh, I say Ann Arbor, where have I heard that before? Yeah, there we go. So this is by Bob Johnson. Devante Stanford pleaded guilty to the murder of 4 people when he was 14, but those convictions in Wayne County were thrown out because of police misconduct. He was paid $408,000 for prison. However, he's also seeking $27,000 for 198 days spent in a detention center for teens before pleading guilty. People accused of murder can be held in jail without bond for months or years while awaiting trial, the Associated Press reports. And we know that to be true in the Khalif Browder case. The documentary is simply called Time, the Khalif Browder story. Very sad, but one of those things that really you need to watch so that you understand how bad things can be. The Michigan Supreme Court heard arguments Wednesday which could provide more money to people who are wrongfully convicted of crimes. The Associated Press reports that a person who is exonerated gets $50,000 for every year spent in prison, but lower courts have declined to count time served in jail or juvenile detention before trials, saying the law doesn't mention it. This is not as if we're trying to be misers here, said Chris Allen of the Attorney General's office. We believe we're only entitled to pay what the statute permits. That's essentially our argument. Sanford's attorney, Julie Horwitz, noted that people convicted of crimes get credit on their sentences for time served in pre-trial detention, so it makes sense, she added, that the same time should be eligible for compensation. I think that's it about that one. Okay, so that was May. Here we go now. Much more recent. Cops involved in Devante Sanford lawsuit denied immunity. This is by George Hunter of the Detroit News. And I thought somewhere it had a date for this, but maybe it's later on. Detroit. 2 former Detroit officers who are accused in a federal lawsuit of fabricated evidence that put 14-year-old Devante Sanford in prison for nearly 9 years will not be granted immunity. The U.S. Sixth Court of Appeals ruled unanimously Thursday that former, I presume that's Detroit Police Department Deputy Chief James Talbot and former homicide lieutenant Michael Russell will be held liable if a jury rules in favor of Sanford in the lawsuit. James Talbot, by the way, he's the chief of police of Flint Town, and we see him briefly in episode 1 before he's replaced by the mayor. Attorneys for Sanford, now 27, filed the suit against Russell, Talbot and the city of Detroit after Sanford was released from prison in June 2016. The lawsuit claims Russell and Talbot fabricated evidence against Sanford. In the 5-page ruling, the Federal Appeals Court slammed the 2 ex-cops. Russell and Talbot argue that they are entitled to qualified immunity against Sanford's claim that they fabricated evidence against him, the ruling said. In doing so, they brazenly seek to have us revisit the district court's assessment of the relevant evidence, which in this appeal we will not do. City officials representing Talbot and Russell did not return an email Friday seeking comment. The city's law department generally declines to discuss ongoing litigation. William Goodman, one of Sanford's attorneys in the suit, said Friday he was pleased with the appellate court ruling. The Sixth Circuit did absolutely the right thing, and they properly admonished the city for bringing a frivolous appeal, wasting taxpayer money to go through a useless process, Goodman said. The court once again underscored the injustice that Devante has suffered throughout his life. Sanford's case attracted national attention when, 2 weeks after he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 37 to 90 years in prison, hitman Vincent Smothers confessed to the same 2007 quadruple homicide for which Sanford had just been convicted. Sanford claims he was tricked by Talbot and Russell into confessing to the killings and coerced to plead guilty by Sanford's attorney, Robert Slamica, who was disbarred in 2018. Are you thinking Brendan and Len Kaczynski here? After multiple ethics violations. After years of appeals, Sanford was freed from prison in June 2016 following a Michigan State Patrol report that alleged Talbot had lied on the witness stand about a sketch of the crime scene, a drug house on Runyon Street on Detroit's east side. Talbot claimed during a July 3, 2010 appeal hearing that Sanford had drawn the diagram by himself, but during a September 2015 interview, Talbot told state investigators he had drawn part of the sketch. According to a transcript of the interview, Talbot messed up the sketch and tried to throw it away, but state police detectives intercepted him and preserved the diagram. Now, we've mentioned this Kim Worthy before. Prosecutor Kim Worthy said the decision to drop the charges against Sanford was made because the question of who drew the crime scene sketch tainted the case. Well, Kim, you're famous. You are famous for having said that even actual innocence should not be a reason to exonerate somebody who has confessed. That it's like a used car salesman. It's sold as seen. Once you've made your confession, there's no going back. Actual innocence, you claim, is not enough to reverse a conviction. Anyway, state detectives submitted a warrant request seeking perjury charges against Talbot, but Worthy later declined to prosecute him after the statute of limitations ran out. State police also submitted warrants asking for murder charges against Smothers and the man he claimed was his partner, Ernest Davis, but Worthy never charged the two men. Talbot left Detroit in 2013 to become Flint's police chief. He was fired in 2016 and took up a job as a deputy chief in Highland Park, although he resigned last year after multiple protests. After Russell retired from the DPD earlier this year, the Detroit Board of Police Commissioners, in its March 5th meeting, read into the record a resolution honouring him for his lifelong contributions and commitment to excellence. Remember, Bert and Ernie, they got special awards for their work on the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey case. U.S. District Judge David Lawton, who is presiding over the lawsuit, had a different opinion of Russell, saying during a hearing last year that the entire case against Sanford was based on lies that were told over and over by Russell and Talbot. After the judge made those comments, Detroit Police Chief James Craig put Russell on restricted duty, confiscating his gun and badge. Russell, who spent 25 years on Detroit's police force, was working in the Real-Time Crime Center at the time of his resignation. In Thursday's ruling, the Federal Appeals Court pointed out that the 14th Amendment bars officers from knowingly creating false evidence to obtain a conviction, adding that jurors in the lawsuit should be allowed to hear arguments that Sanford's constitutional rights were violated. Right, Bert and Ernie, particularly Wiegert, this groin swab that you took of Steve, and later on we have this hood latch swab. You know, when you think about it, if you were going to look to all the places that somebody would touch in opening a bonnet, you know, even if we said, for argument's sake, let's say Brendan Dassey, you know, maybe the release, the bonnet release inside the car was his side, so he's pulled that. Well, that could be swabbed for, obviously, for Brendan Dassey's DNA, but it was that according to, you know, the confession by Brendan, it was Steve that went under the bonnet. And you think of all the places he would have touched before even touching the hood latch, the bonnet itself, the stay. So, like I said, when you wonder about why didn't they swab anywhere else, as Mail Bully pointed out, because they only had the one swab. Anyway, let's move on. Let's carry on down here. Specifically, and the other thing, sorry, that I wanted to go back to was this supposed blood found on a trainer of Devontae Sanford. Remember that Juan Rivera? The fact that the blood was planted on his shoe was quite obvious, because the shoe that he was wearing, the type of trainer Americans call them sneakers, the type of trainer that he was wearing wasn't available in the US at that point. It was obvious that it had been planted. I mean, what are the chances of Devontae Sanford having this blood on his trainer? Well, exactly. Who was the guy, Kofed, who actually did 2 years for planting evidence in that one case, where it was actually a young couple from Wisconsin who had carried out the double murders. Anyway, let's carry on. Specifically, the evidence would allow a jury to find that Talbot fabricated a misleading sketch, that Russell drafted a false confession, and that together they attributed both pieces of evidence to Sanford when they gave evidence for the case to the prosecutor, the ruling said. The officers, therefore, are not entitled to qualified immunity on this claim. The city had also sought immunity for Talbot and Russell on the claim that Sanford's confession had been coerced, violating the 5th and 14th Amendments. The appellate court shot down that request as well. Well, good on them. So, here, a jury could find that Russell and Talbot questioned a 14-year-old boy in the middle of the night for hours at a time without a parent or attorney present. They did so for 2 nights in a row. That Russell falsely told Sanford that officers had found blood on his shoes, and that Russell falsely promised that Sanford could go to school the next day if he hurried up and confessed, the ruling said. The law made clear enough that these tactics, under these circumstances, were likely coercive, the ruling said. Another element of the lawsuit from which the officers sought immunity was the claim of malicious prosecution. The appeals court ruled against granting the indemnification. A jury could find that Russell and Talbot fabricated critical evidence which they passed off to prosecutors as authentic, which in turn caused Sanford to be imprisoned for 9 years, the ruling said. This is where you wonder, in Making a Murderer, Pete Bates makes it quite clear. Ken Kratz was the one orchestrating the investigation. And so whilst this Kim Worthy can try and distance herself from it, one does wonder. Anyway, Russell and Talbot cannot seriously contend that a reasonable police officer would not know that these actions would violate Sanford's constitutional rights, said the ruling. Now, after Sanford was released from prison, he moved to Arizona, where he was charged in 2018 with aggravated assault after firing an AR-15 rifle near his Phoenix home. He pleaded guilty in Maricopa County Superior Court to reckless discharge of a firearm and received probation. Sanford still lives in Phoenix with his infant son, his attorney said. I really wanted to get a date for this, because I'm sure there was one, but nothing seems to be coming up. Hold on a second, let me just check something here. No, can't seem to find anything. As I say, this is far more recent though. I think within the last week. Anyway, once again, for those who didn't catch the very start, a lot of people have suggested that this is the famous Harry Potter viaduct, the Glenfinnan viaduct, which it isn't. It's actually the Leaderfoot viaduct here in the Borders. But it reminds us of Harry Potter. So let's go back to Hogwarts. And so my challenge, and I don't know if anybody's replied to this challenge, could think of three examples of wrongful conviction in Harry Potter. Yeah, I'm not seeing any answers to that one. As I say, I'll give you a clue. We're looking at books 2 and 3. 3 examples of wrongful conviction in Harry Potter. I say we know that Brendan is a big Harry Potter fan. My goodness me, old Billy. Hey, that'd be good. Yeah, that would be good. So people, watch out for that. Take it he's not working tonight, so that makes a change, eh, Millbilly? Never seen it or read it. Dude, you don't know what you're missing. You honestly don't. We have one. Yes, we have one answer. Of course, the third book is called The Prisoner of Azkaban. And so yes, Sirius Black, one example. So as I say, there's two other examples of circumstances of wrongful conviction in Harry Potter. See if you can get them by the time I've go live with Pete Darcy. At the moment we're looking at the same time as last week, which was 2 o'clock Central Time. But as he said, if he decides to go shopping, it could be the later 3 o'clock time. But he did say he would let me know by about midday. So I'll schedule it for 2 o'clock. And if we need to bump it back, we will do. Talking about bumping it back, had a really nice email from Mark Godsey, apologising that wouldn't be able to do Tuesday the 5th of January, so next Tuesday. It would be the next again Wednesday, so Wednesday the 13th at 10 o'clock New York Central morning time, which is my 3 in the afternoon, and so that would be looking forward to that one. And Millbilly, just be careful, okay? If you bump into Robert Herman, say Paul sends best wishes. Mr. Weasley, wrongly accused. No, I don't think so. That's not what I'm thinking of anyway. I'm not thinking that one, no. I'll say we're thinking book 2 and book 3. Okay, I'll let you all go, and as I say, have a good new year when it comes, and let's just put this back to Southern California. I say the dude's still got some nice whiskies here, so cheers, and we'll see you again soon. If I might even later on do a bit more of the review of Police Interrogation and American Justice. We'll have to wait and see. I've got quite a bit on today. So anyway, we'll catch you all again soon. As I say, if you can think of the 3 examples of wrongful conviction in Harry Potter, please do pop them in the comments below, and any other comments as well you wanna add, that's absolutely fine. Okay, cheers, bye for now.